Hello and happy Wednesday. I'm excited for another Athenaeum Collective Power Up Live. Really excited today to have Jeff Nicholson join me to chat about digital media buying. We partnered on a course which we're launching next week. Him and Olivia Hawkins together created a really fantastic course that really helps people dive into what is paid media and also talks a lot about how to actually go into a self-service platform like Google and Facebook and create your own campaigns step by step. I'm always intimidated when I see these types of opportunities, and I realize that, I just sometimes wish somebody would show me actually how to do these things. So, it's very challenging sometimes to look into a system like a Google or a Facebook and where do I even start and why do I pick the different options that I have. And what's really cool about this course is it really goes into that level of detail. And I think what's really exciting is that both Jeff and I have sort of that passion for wanting to create education, to educate people. So I'm really excited for him to join me. I know he's right now going online, so hopefully he will be joining very soon. And hold on one sec. Here we go. Yay! I'm excited. This will be fun. I love these conversations. I love that I have met the most interesting people through this entire process, and it's so exciting. And here he comes. He's joining right now. Here we go. Yay! I love when this happens. Hey,
how we doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry for being a minute late. I was trying to jump from meeting to meeting, obviously, as usual. So
I know,
apologies.
exactly. That's not bad. Usually you're running 5 minutes behind, so I think you're doing really good. It's only 2 minutes.
I agree. I'm ahead of schedule by being only 2 minutes late, so
I
I feel
love
good
that.
about that.
Awesome. And I am a big respecter of time, so we'll keep you on time on this one as well.
We're good. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. I'm so glad you're here. I was just setting up before you joined. I love what I do because I get to meet really fascinating people. And I was looking through how I met you, and it was almost a year ago.
Yeah.
No, actually maybe 2 years ago.
It was, I was gonna say, at least almost two. Yeah.
2019, through somebody who knew you through Eric Huberman over at Hawk
Yep.
Media.
Yeah.
And I just think it's
Who's
so
a lovely
fun.
client, by the way. Shout out to Eric. I love him, and
Yes.
a very great Tracer client. So kudos.
Exactly. And a really great entrepreneur. I'm really impressed with all the great work he does. So shout out to Eric. But anyway, what I was saying was that I was really excited that, I think we both have a similar sort of mindset around this idea of empowering people through education. And I was explaining that we have partnered on this great course for digital media buying. And what I love about it is it's really actionable. Like, it teaches people not only how to go onto these platforms and buy paid media, but why you make the decisions that you do.
Yep.
So I love that. I'm really excited about that.
Yep.
But so I want to really kind of talk about, before we get into that level of detail, really more about you and kind of how did you even get into paid media and
Yeah.
and
I mean, honestly, very lucky. First of all, feel very blessed, and thank you again for having me. I got my career because of my mom, to be honest.
Wow.
So yeah, shout out to mom. I hope she's watching. I was in finance. I absolutely hated it. I quit my job, and all of a sudden, I'm sitting at home, and my mom got very nervous for me because I had gone to college and I gave up a great job at a great bank, and I just couldn't see myself sitting there another day, and I never went back. And
wow.
yeah, I mean, just scary, like the dumbest thing you could do as a young entrepreneur, probably, but also maybe the best. And I sat at home and fished pretty much every day and just went to the lake and would, fish and hang out and just be like, what am I doing? And my mom got me a job at iProspect, which at the time was a very small startup.
I remember that.
In Watertown, Massachusetts. I think I was employee number 74
Wow.
because her friend was the wife of the CFO. And
great.
and they were just talking, and they said, hey, we're hiring young, smart college graduates. And I applied and got the job. And I remember being like 2 weeks in and sitting there, and my boss had turned to me and said, figure this out. And it was running ads on Google. And I was running a campaign for Brooks Brothers. I'll never forget this. And I quadrupled their revenue doing something very simple, which was just changing landing pages for how people wanted to shop. And the woman called me and she goes, what did you do? Please do more. And I have never looked back ever since that
Wow.
moment. Yeah.
That is so great. And it's so funny how you just embrace something
Mhm.
new and trying something different and
Yeah.
look at the whole career from this. So
Yeah.
you then parlayed that into, obviously you were there for a long time, and then, moving on to VaynerMedia. And I
Yeah.
love how you were the CMO, but it was the chief media officer.
Correct. Yeah.
So
So
explain
there's two
exactly what does that
CMOs.
mean?
Yeah. So most people, I didn't know this right away. It was fascinating to me where I eventually got a job that I had never heard of before. And when you hear the acronym CMO, everyone thinks Chief Marketing Officer.
Exactly.
When you're typically at a large scale business, specifically like Fortune 100s or agencies, they're going to have a chief media officer. So I'm responsible for everyone's money. And so I always tell people that I spend it as if it was my own. And I care
Mm-hmm.
deeply that it works. But at one point was spending nearly $500 million on behalf of the VaynerMedia clients, and have spent billions of dollars at this point in my career for a vast majority of of different businesses. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. It's so interesting because I've always been on the opposite side of the fence where I was selling to
Yeah,
people like you, trying to get some of that media money for Microsoft back in the day, and then NBC Universal. So
exactly.
yeah, it's funny. And people don't always realize that there's a
Yeah,
lot of people think of the agency as so much part of the business, but there's a whole amazing part of the business that's on the other side of it, right? The people
yeah.
who are in the ad tech
Creative,
thing.
account,
Yes,
production. I mean, there's so many jobs. I think the thing, and again, this is why I love working with you, is just exposing people to new things. I think that the struggle for me was I went to a great school, Babson College, was very blessed to go there and get a business education. And the coaching typically went towards finance. They just ended up picking a lot of the classic jobs or structures, which is nothing wrong with that. But as an entrepreneur by heart, none of them really fit me. And so I
yeah,
think for a long time I was navigating to find a different style of work and a new place and understand. My buddies are
I
texting,
saw
which is
that. You're a good
yeah,
basketball player
yeah.
too.
It was just I needed a different path, and I think just embracing that you're an entrepreneur, understanding that you're not going to fit into the classic structure, and that's okay. I did pretty early in my career and got very lucky to spend time with a lot of smart people that helped me grow and have parlayed it into multiple jobs and now run my own company, which I could not be prouder of.
Now it's interesting you say the word entrepreneur. Like at what point, because you were working, VaynerMedia is a big company. That's not
Yeah,
like at what point did you say, or maybe you've always kind of known this, that you
always,
wanted it to
always.
always be your own thing?
Yeah, always. I mean, I sold, I tell this story a lot. I sold lobsters. So my dad's a scuba diver. My parents are obviously fantastic and had a huge impact on me.
Obviously.
And he would come home every weekend and he's catching with his bare hands, which is crazy. He's a crazy person. And he's in 60 feet of water, catching lobsters, comes home. And I realized one day at the market when I'm with my mom that they sell for 79, 7.99 a pound. So I'm doing the math in my head. I was good at math. And I'm like, Dad, I'm like, that's $14 lobster right there. And he's like, no, I just give them away for free. I'm like, what? So I eventually convinced him to let me sell half of them. So he was, giving them to the family. So my uncle's eating lobsters, my mom's eating, everyone's eating lobsters. But I was like, I want to sell them. So we would sell them to the neighbors at discount. So he let me, and the neighbors, obviously they knew and they didn't really care. They're giving me
Yeah.
like $20. So I'm like, this is $7 lobster, give you the discount. It's $5. And so it's $10 a pound, whatever. And next thing you know, I'm doing it every week. And I was just like, I was hooked. And I ever always remembered that. And then for me, I sold golf clubs after, and I've done all these things I've known since day one. And so I think you just have to accept it and live it and enjoy it. And then, it's just a lot better.
That
But
is
I
so
don't think
great.
company size dictates being an entrepreneur. Like when I went to Vayner, the media team was 7 people. I mean, it was a very small group. This guy, Jason, and a few other people were running the group, and they were amazing, but they wanted to actually become a true media company. So they were spending a few $1,000,000, to take it to hundreds of millions. You have to, really be an entrepreneur and push. And I partnered with Gary and pitched him on that. And so, for me, I don't think it's about where you are. I think it's about what you do and how you act.
Yeah, it's really a mindset, right? Is
Yeah.
that you're willing to innovate, you're willing to sort of take those risks and figure out,
Yeah.
wow, here's a need, right? Or here's a problem, and I want to
Mhm.
be the one to solve it.
Yeah. I mean, I always challenge everything and not in a disrespectful way. It's just, why is that the case, right? Any more,
Mm.
my favorite one, and my wife just joined, so she'll laugh at this, but I don't wear a tie. I just refuse to wear a tie on principle because it's a knot around my neck. If you step back and say, oh,
Yeah.
someone taught you it's a tie and it's formal, well, that's cool. Well, that just looks like a piece of material tied in a knot around my neck. Now, if you told anyone to tie a knot around their neck and walk around, they would say no.
Yeah, you're right.
Right. And so like I look at it the same way, where it's just the lenses that you look through the world, and I like mine, right? And I challenge the world in regards to how I see it, and how I want to live, and how I want to talk. And I think you just have to be comfortable with yourself. And as an entrepreneur, I think you need that very much, because most of the time people are going to think you're crazy, or you're going to push against things that people don't think are possible. And the self-confidence and the comfort of that is going to fuel you, because you're going to do these things for years.
Yeah, and I think you also really need to kind of embrace your superpower. Like I feel like this journey has really helped me realize what I'm good at, which is
Yep.
I feel like I've become really good at getting the expertise out of people's heads to turn them into really amazing courses.
Yeah.
And
You
you
definitely
know,
did it with Olivia, by the way. I was
oh
so
my
proud.
God,
Yeah.
Olivia Hawkins,
Yeah.
amazing. Shout out to
Shout
her. She
out.
did such a
Yeah.
good job. It was really, really good. So I'm curious for you, you here now you've split off and you have more than one company, right? You're working on quite a few things.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit first about Nickel Notes. Like
Okay.
why education kind of, tell a little bit what the company
Yeah.
is, that company, and kind of how you got into that.
So Nickel Notes is an education business that operates in a very specific way. So we run a consulting business on the front side. In exchange, I give discount consulting to take the experiences that I consult on and package them up and teach at universities. And the premise of the business was the fact that there's a huge gap between when you graduate college and the knowledge you have, and what the businesses actually want and what's
Yeah.
going on. And I had it myself, and I started with employees, and I hit a point where I had hired thousands of kids, coming out of school, and they were teaching some of the same business classes and the same case studies that I had. And I'm fine with the conceptual principles that they were teaching, but some of them weren't applicable.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden, we're on an Instagram live, and the world is run on your phone, and the dynamics
Yeah.
have changed. Like, you need to change how you teach. And I think that, like, for me, that was a huge kind of like light bulb. And then the compounding factor was, not to be sad, I got cancer as a young dad. And it really made me think about who was going to teach my kids. And I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to create a better educational like ecosystem. So very simple motivational factor of understanding there was a huge opportunity, having a personal motivation for my two baby boys. So I launched the business and just started partnering with schools, and in some cases doing things for free and just teaching. And now, I have the luxury of running Nickel Notes with Olivia, and we teach at Georgia Tech and Babson College and University of Virginia. Shout out to Nicole, who's amazing. And a variety of some of the top tier institutions, and we get to help put out a better product. And I leverage the luxury of having a network and the ability to do consulting for businesses to really just use it to teach young people and help the professors. And I find a lot of fun. I really enjoy teaching, and Olivia is an amazing business partner. So it's been a lot of fun for the last few years.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I think what you're right about, especially what we're talking about when it talks marketing and advertising, media, technology is changing so fast
Yeah.
that it's really hard to
Everything.
keep up with everything. I mean,
Yeah.
and especially as you grow in your career and whether at the beginning you don't know, you need to know what you don't know, right? And you grow
Yep.
through that way. But even as you get old into your career and you oversee more, you realize you don't know everything, you know less.
Oh,
So like the
very little.
opportunity,
Yeah.
yeah, to
You
give
have to be naturally
people,
curious, right? I think number one, you always have to admit to yourself, like, you're not going to know everything, and someone
yeah,
probably knows more, right? And then the second thing you have to do is just be hungry to learn more and be naturally curious. And a new example is blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and understanding, most people don't know what an NFT is, with the non-fungible
yeah.
token, and understanding that, like, one just sold yesterday for $2 million, and it's a piece of digital art. Yes,
Oh
I did
my,
buy one, but it was a lot cheaper than that. But there's a whole,
wow.
yeah, it's called CryptoPunks, and it's the first non-fungible token built on Ethereum blockchain. And I've spent the last, honestly, 2 weeks in an absolute hole about learning this, because shout out to Gary, my business partner and boss. he flagged it to me as something he was learning about, and I got excited. And honestly, I hadn't felt that level of excitement of learning something in probably 10 years in some cases, because it felt just like I was running ads again. Because it's so
That's
new and
cool.
so impactful. And you'll start seeing it's going to really become mainstream very soon, any more than like people know what Bitcoin is, but they don't totally get it. This is going to transform a variety of industries on how people operating, from art to honestly transactions and history and ledgers and a variety of other things. So it's been pretty fun.
Okay, wait. So just make sure. CryptoPunk,
So CryptoPunk, yep, it is a
is it like
non-fungible
art?
token. Yeah, so there's
Fungible token.
10,000. Yeah, so there's 10,000 CryptoPunks. Okay,
Okay.
and they're all unique. Okay,
Okay.
and it's publicly available to watch the transactions, so you can understand who owns them and how they were purchased and how much, and it lives on the blockchain, so no one has control of it. So you can't delete it in the sense of like understanding what it did or didn't happen. It's public. Everyone can see it. So you can log in
Right.
and see, who bought what and where they are, but there's only 10,000 and they'll only exist. So I kind of joked with someone where it's almost like buying a digital fossil or, a mini
Yeah.
Mona Lisa, because there will only be one point in history in which the first ever was created. And this is the first.
Okay, that is like so mind blowing.
Yeah.
That, and it's funny because on Clubhouse, which I'm sure you're on,
Yep.
there's a lot of conversations about cryptocurrency,
Correct.
Bitcoin, all of
Yeah.
that. I mean, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and
Um,
I'm a beginner. I mean, I stayed up probably 3 times this week past 4 a.m. reading, because I'm enthralled with this. I mean, it's
wow.
when you get the privilege, is how I look at it, to learn and grow and embrace that. There's honestly nothing better. It's intoxicating. So I find this is absolutely fascinating. It's going to change human dynamics and how people operate, and very very much the art scene. I think it's going to completely revolutionize.
What do you think in like the media space and advertising?
I think it's going to have major impacts on just I mean, if you think about some of the applications right now, even thinking about how people take sense out of the supply chain and people don't see it. So when you
Mhm.
start talking about, just tracking transactional behavior between multiple companies at the same time and having it be built on a public ledger, there's nowhere to hide anymore because
Right.
everybody can see it. So I think you're going to see some really interesting applications. A few have
Mhm.
already come out, and you're going to see a lot more.
Wow, that is very cool. So that kind of parlays into the other part of your other company. So let's
Yep.
talk a little bit about Tracer, because that's really about attribution and measurement, right?
hmm Yeah, so there's a lot of terms out there people use. So data processing, business intelligence. I really pick based on what people will understand for the most part. But we're very simply put, we're taking a bunch of different data sets and we're putting them together so people understand what they should look at to honestly make better decisions. So if you think about Google, Facebook, and Roku, they're
Hmm.
all competing companies for advertising. They don't talk to each other, right? And
Right.
I'm an advertiser. I have to work with Google independently to Roku and independently to Facebook, and I have to aggregate all that data and then say what happened, right? Now Google's probably going to say Google had a really good job, and Roku's going to say I had a really good job. Like everyone's going to have their opinion. We try to be an agnostic platform to give you the ability to make better decisions based on what you think is the right answer, and we try to obviously give advice and consulting on top. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of the business, and we power all different sizes and scales. So Vayner's a client. Sanofi Pharmaceutical is one of my favorite clients. And we're even dealing with small scale D2Cs. I mean, Good Life is the company I'm wearing right now. They're, one of my favorite businesses on the planet because the guys are great, but it's fascinating to watch that no matter if you're, a $10 million or
Yeah.
$20 million t-shirt company or a major pharmaceutical, you have the same problems. They're just at different scales and different sizes, and your data equation looks differently. Some people might be using Google, some people might be using, Facebook. It really doesn't matter. It's just that, we're trying to help people be better with data.
And so you work with them to really aggregate the data and make it meaningful, right? Because
Correct.
that's
Yep.
the challenge is like, even running a small bit, well, a business, there's so much data and what does it mean? Like, and that's the part
Correct.
where, it's that ability to go in and give it a story and to make it meaningful and to, yeah, I mean, I think that I
Yep.
could totally see how people need that. But data's changing too. Like, how do
hmm
you see, like, with the cookieless world and all of that,
hmm
like,
I
how
mean,
does that change?
it's I mean better for Tracer, to be honest. When you start to have changes in the world, we're agnostic. One of the nice things about our position in the marketplace is that I'm not telling anybody the answer for them. I'm telling them there's a unique answer for each business. And so our technology is built to be flexible based on what's available. I'm not creating data. I'm taking everyone's data that they have access to and permission to use, and I'm putting it together so that you can understand what you should do with your business. A good example would be, understanding the return rate on a t-shirt on different colors or different materials might impact on what you promote in the future because it's going to increase profitability. Or, maybe you establish that in Arizona, your conversion rate is higher on your website because people have seen your t-shirt in an ad that you weren't aware of, or maybe you should launch a store there because people just have a greater appreciation for your clothes in that region based on, weather. I mean, there's 1,000 variations you can look at. And I think most people drown in data. And so
Yeah.
we try to throw them a life raft is how I look at it.
I love that. I think it's so true. And I think taking that data and through the sort of the customer journey and figuring out where do you need more, where do you need less, where is it, could you be doing better? All of that stuff makes a really big difference. And having companies like that, I think, is really, really, really helpful. So how do you balance your time between all these different things?
My team would probably say not well, to be honest, but no, I love it. I think the one advantage I have over everybody is it's my hobby. It's my passion.
Yeah.
I love work. I mean, outside of spending time with my wife and my kids, like there's nothing better than doing work. I mean, I sit down on Saturday and I will have a glass of coffee and I'm going to work, and not because I feel obligated, is because it's my favorite thing to do. And I think that's the biggest advantage I have outside of my superpower, I think is just mental willpower. I just will myself to do things more than I think anybody else will. But I think you really have to love it. And then I think you just have to get really diligent about why you're doing things. The
Yeah.
education thing is a passion thing. I do that because I want to help people. It's important to me. But, Tracer is just it's my baby. I built it with my co-founder and my little brother. And there's nothing I'd rather work on.
You actually, is it seriously
No,
your little
no,
brother?
not, yeah, I call him my little brother, but yeah, we're pretty much, we're nearly a decade at this point. So yeah, I think I
Oh
qualify
my
in the
God,
family.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. So, um, when you think about, so you have those two things, is there other things that you want to build? Like,
Yeah, yeah. No,
yeah.
so I have a third company called Nicholson Sons as a joke because of my boys. And I do financial consulting for firms, really picking kind of stocks in the market, specifically in tech.
Wow.
So I do that, and then I have a few other things brewing with my business partner that we're contemplating.
That's amazing. I mean, I have a hard time just doing one thing. I mean, having all of those things. I mean, you're very fortunate that you have a team and you have
Oh,
really good
I'm super
business partners.
blessed.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
I feel like I worked 15 plus years to get here, and I still appreciate it, and I'm more excited about it today than I was 15 years ago. I think I just appreciate it a lot more. I enjoy it more, and I get to spend time with my favorite people. I mean, half my friends.
Oh, I think I lost your audio there for a minute. Oh, yeah, there it
Yeah,
is.
sorry. Yeah, someone was trying to call me. Um, and I really, for me, it's just a pleasure to spend time. Like, I mean, Leighton, I call my little brother. I mean, he's been with me since he graduated Harvard. We've been together nearly like a decade, and I don't think he's never worked for anyone else except me, right? And Claire Clemmer, who's my chief of staff and director of operations, has been with me nearly a half a decade, and she's my best friend in some,
See,
like,
that's so great. I mean, that's the way it really should be. And I feel
yeah,
like, you know, this idea of working hard. I mean, I worked really hard my whole career to get to the point where I could, you know, be an entrepreneur. But it's funny because I never thought of myself that way ever. Like it really took till this to feel passionate about something where, like what you were saying about working on a Saturday, I feel the same way.
yeah.
I didn't love working on weekends when I worked for somebody else, but when it's your own and something you're super passionate about and something that provides so much, the payoff of
Yeah,
the building and
there's
the,
nothing to replace that in my opinion, outside of
yeah,
like, a hug from the kids and they come over and say, Dad, like there's just nothing that replaces that. I mean, I have a woman right now, I don't want to embarrass her, but it's my wife's friend, and I'm helping her with her business, and it's a great business. I'm very excited about it. And she's making crafts for kids, actually Castle Crafts. You can look it up. So she gets the shout out, but
awesome, good plug, love it.
yeah, I was so excited for her to come over. I think I was more excited than she was. Like I'm sitting there embarrassed because I'm so excited about her business and her becoming an entrepreneur and pushing. And and she's doing a phenomenal job and already is very successful like early on. And I don't even think she understands how good of a business model she's running. And I was sitting there just stoked. Like I sat for a half a day and just did research, and I'm like, I don't even know, I know nothing about the business. She doesn't pay me. And I couldn't get enough.
That's so great. And she's very fortunate to have somebody who's willing to dig like that and to understand and help.
Yeah,
What
no,
advice do you
she's
have
great.
for people getting into, coming out of college and just basically to be a part of this industry or really any industry? But I'm
Hmm.
just curious, what advice do you have?
Yeah, I tell a couple of people, one, don't stress out so much. I think a lot of young people feel like they need to figure it out so quickly. And you have so much time. I mean, I'm 38 years old and I feel like I'm 12, and I got another like I will never stop working. And so like I really think people just need to give themselves a break and like just put a smile on your face and go, man, I get to I feel pumped, I'm breathing every day. So it's like a very easy benchmark to go over from a happiness perspective. So that's number one, just like take it easy.
Yeah.
Two, try things. I think young people feel like they have to like, I got to go in finance and then I'm going to take this job and this job and this job and this, and they never even like figured out like, do I want to be a creative person? Do I want to make
Yeah.
videos? Do I want to teach? So I think that's second, just try things, see what you like. Third, make sure you know why you're doing things, like cultivate the effort and the motivation correctly. I think a lot of people are driven by things that aren't really their own, and that might be, impressing other people or money and they do it for the
Parents.
wrong, yeah, parents. And like, I really think you got to step back and go, why am I doing this? And make sure you're cultivating the motivation, because if it's not the right motivation, it'll die quickly. And then the last thing is surround yourself with people that, you love and you want to spend time with and that are going to make you a better person, you know?
Yeah, I agree with all this. I mean, I would also say network. I think you mentioned it at the very beginning that you have a really amazing
Mm.
network. And I just, and I don't think people even sometimes really appreciate what network means. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many people that we meet, but creating some type of relationship that you can, even if you don't talk to them a year from now, but you've
Yeah.
made some connection, right?
People confuse the word network with sales too much.
Yeah,
Networking is creating human connection.
agree.
One of my favorite, I use this story a lot and he doesn't mind. Michael Ackerman, he's the chief product officer at Cardalytics, which is a public tech company, brilliant guy. And we met 15 years ago, no, 14 years ago, I want to say. And he was pitching me some technology in Boston and we were there at the time. And I was not buying what he was selling. Like it just wasn't going to happen. But we went out for beers and just talked as human beings and just like,
Yeah.
where are you from? And what do you do? And what do you like? And we're still friends to this day. I talked to him yesterday. And I just don't, they just forget that that's a big deal. My dad had this thing is like, your next connection is your best connection.
Yeah.
And it's such a true line because it's like, if you value all of the things that you do with those people, it's going to come back to you, And I think that I like the Mike story because it's like, I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't expecting us to be friends for 15 years and know each other and like help each other out like 10 years later when we're dads. But like, it was just on the fact that I asked him to go to beers and we were just hanging out and talking as buds and we talked sports and life. And I think that's something that people forget too. And it's like, put the effort in just to make new connections and network, but do it for the right reason. Don't just go
Yeah.
out and just go, oh, I'm going to do this because I want to use this person. Like,
Right.
give value to other people. I mean, I don't predominantly, I just will give out my time for free anyways, just because it's fun and I don't really worry about it.
Although time is something you only have a certain amount
That's right.
of, which
Yeah. Well,
I want to be
you gotta
conscious of
respect it. Yeah.
because,
Oh, I'm fine. I'm going to be late
okay.
anyway. So it's good. Don't worry about it. It's just by nature. He
Yeah,
already texted
exactly.
me. He probably knows I'm on this, so we're fine.
No, but I really think that's great advice because it's funny. I've had this conversation lately with quite a few people about this idea of building networks. And I think you're right. It's this exchanging of value and connecting on a human level. I think that's amazing. Um, how can people, reach you or follow you? You obviously have a lot of, you're
Yeah.
working on a lot of things. You have a lot going on. I think
Hmm.
you obviously have so much that that you share. How can people follow you and
Yeah.
find out
So
more about you?
LinkedIn is probably what I try to use the most.
Okay.
Instagram, people obviously can follow me if they'd like and send me a message. My email is jeff@tracer.tech, so it's pretty easy. Oh,
That is pretty easy.
oh, I lost her for a
There you
second.
go.
And yeah, and then obviously hit up Olivia or the info box at Tracer or anything. I mean, I try to respond as much as possible if it's something I can help with or it's something I feel like I can have an impact on. And I apologize to anyone who does reach out and I don't get to. I promise you I'm getting thousands of emails, so it is tough to navigate.
I can only imagine. Well, I just want to thank you so much for your time. And I'm really, really excited about launching our course together.
It's going to be amazing. Amazing.
It
I mean,
is
Olivia's
absolutely.
phenomenal. I would tell everybody, if you want in-depth teachings that will actually show you what to do, I'm very proud that Olivia and the team have put together something great, because a lot of people will sell you the dream and tell you like, hey, we're going to teach you how to make millions of dollars. And we're not telling any of that. We're telling you that this
No,
is tactical information that you need to have if you want to run a business. And it's come from executives and people in the space who have done this for years, who take great pride to help other people.
absolutely. I mean, I'm so excited. I used it personally to like teach
Great.
myself how to buy the ads on Google. And it was
See, it
really
works.
easy. You know,
Case
it's like
study.
I just like somebody tell me how to do it and tell me why I'm choosing the things that I'm choosing. And
That's
that
right.
really makes a big difference.
Yep. And if anyone needs help after you take the course, like, I promise you, reach out and I will definitely try to do my best, because it's something that I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of Olivia, and it's something that I think can have a really great impact on a lot of businesses, because it is hard. It's hard to navigate a world that you don't know.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Well, I want to give you your time back. It's 12:30.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. It was great to chat with you on
Appreciate it.
Instagram Live.
You're the best.
And we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. Bye.